Brilliant, okay. So welcome to our third panel of today at the IBC conference, and we're going to be talking on the topic of progressing your career in the insurance market. First, before we get started, I would love to hear a bit more about you and your background. So let's start with you, Mandy.
Yeah. So Melody Mandini, I'm a director at Deloitte's insurance consulting practice. Similar to Naomi and Alice, I'm a reserving actuary by training, but really spend most of my time working with general insurance and London market clients on setting the vision and strategy for their operational transformations. And recently I've been asked to lead our sustainability and climate offering, which for me is very exciting because it relates very closely to what I've already been doing, just in a slightly different context, but it is has a kind of nice moral feeling behind it. And when I'm at work, I am taking care of two very small children, so I'm very, very busy and wear makeup so I look less tired.
You don't look tired at all. I'm Kaylee Bennyworth. I'm the Group Head of Risk and Compliance for Specialist Risk Group. I've been in the insurance industry for about 12 years, predominantly on the broking side, with a specialism in compliance. I've done lots of different roles in compliance, from business partnering to helping with strategic projects such as M&A and regulatory change. For the last 2 years, I've been in the Specialist Risk Group, really focusing on building out a scalable risk and compliance program and helping with the integration of their acquisitions.
Thank you. I'm Natalie Hunter. I'm the Global Talent Advisor for CRB, which is the broking part of WTW. My role is to work with our global business leaders to help them to develop and to deliver their people strategy. I've been with WTW for 14 years. And during that time there's been mergers, there's been an almost merger, and there's been lots of change. So that's allowed me to help the business to travel through that change, but also has ensured that I've had an opportunity to be very adaptive and obviously resilient to change myself. Before I was at WTW, I spent some time at AIG, Microsoft, and a few law firms, just kind of testing the water all over the place to see, but I think I enjoy working in financial services, and that's why I stay where I am.
I'm Kelly Gardner. I'm the Business Analysis Lead at Axis. This year I celebrate 20 years in insurance, which feels scary even for me. I had quite a non-traditional route in, so I started in reinsurance claims and kind of bobbed my way around, and then kind of fell into IT. Found it to be something that really suited my skill set of kind of being the nosiest person in the room, having to know how to do everything, and needing to know how everything works. So business analysis is the job that I never knew I needed.
Thank you very much. So we have lots of different perspectives and experience at this panel today. So let's dive straight in. So one question that's relevant to all of us, and we're all busy managing stakeholder relationships. So let's come to you, Kelly. Sounds like you are busy managing stakeholder relationships in your role. So how important are those relationships, and how do you manage them? Have you got any examples that you could share with us?
It's really, really important. I find that analysis is a relationship job, as many other jobs are. To be a good analyst, you kind of have to know who knows things, because you can't know everything. None of us do, but as an analyst you have to try and know as much as possible. So the best way of doing that is to have relationships with people and to work with them and allow them to help you. I have one great example is I did a finance project, complete finance transformation, moving to different finance systems, merging companies, and I knew nothing about finance, never touched it in my life. I had an underwriting background, a claims background, but nothing in finance, and I was terrified. But I kind of worked with all the people I already knew in underwriting and in claims. I kind of asked them to introduce me to people in finance, and kind of then worked out how to do everything. Met all these people, and everybody is willing to help you because people are willing to help you, but you use those relationships and you learn from people. So relationships themselves are kind of the way you do your job, especially in my role.
Brilliant, thank you, Kelly. A great example there of why those relationships are so important to getting things done. Now, Natalie, I imagine your role, you're managing lots of different stakeholders. How important are those stakeholder relationships to your success?
So yeah, you're right, and I think the only reason that I can be successful in the role that I do is because of the relationships that I have, and you have to take time to build those relationships and nurture those relationships and ensure that that trust is there in the relationship. The role that I have to kind of navigate the organisation, trying to ensure that I support the business in delivering what they need to, but also considering what the company guidelines might be, but also considering legal legislation that we need to consider as well. So I have to make sure that the leaders trust me and that the advice that I'm giving to them, it will support where they want to get to. So I think, I would really say that having that trusted relationship with stakeholders is key to being successful in your role and your career.
Great, thanks, Natalie. Kaylee, have you got anything that you want to
Yes,
add?
well, I totally agree with both Natalie and Kelly's point. The only thing that I would add is that it's really important to also leverage your stakeholder relationships. When you share and collaborate with your stakeholders, really helps to gain traction and momentum in the projects, and that can be so important when you're on a really tight deadline, because you can get things done very quickly.
Thank you. So some great examples of why those relationships are so important to getting our jobs done. Linking nicely to this, if we move on to thinking about influence, Melanie, how important is your ability to influence and collaborate with others?
Yeah, I mean, as a consultant, it's absolutely fundamental to what I do to be able to influence people. And kind of building on from what's been said already, one of the ways that I do that with both internal stakeholders and external stakeholders, my clients, is helping draw the benefit to them and make it real for them and help them understand that if they go down a certain path, right, here's how it's going to benefit you directly, and I think that really helps draw that out and really buys them into the process as well.
Brilliant, thank you, Melody. Natalie, as you already said, those relationships, that trusted advisor relationship is really important to you, so what's your view on that?
Yeah, so you're right, and my role is an individual contributor role, so if I need to get anything done in the organisation, I need to do that through teams that sit around me, so my ability to influence those teams and bring them on the journey is really important. So I work really hard to ensure that I build those relationships and ensure that those people really understand the journey that I'm going on and what I need to deliver, so that when it comes to the point when I need to their support to deliver something, that they're there and they're happy to work with me.
Fantastic, thank you, Natalie. So moving on, so one of the topics that we've talked about on the Insurance Breakfast Club, which links nicely to this piece around influence and stakeholders, is credibility. And we talked about how you raise your profile. Now, Kelly, I know this is something that you're good at, and it's something you do well. What advice can you give us on strategies to raise your profile? What's worked well for you?
I think for me, I volunteer a lot, and that's how I've moved through my career, but I've also found that, especially with us working from home more, is being in the same spaces as people, as different types of people around the organisation, of different people whose influence may be useful to you. So I've joined the Women's ERG, I've joined other different forums, I have volunteered for projects that I know people are on that I don't necessarily have exposure to, because I think, as we've spoken about before, it's not just my manager who's in the room talking about me, and when he's not there, there needs to be other people who know who you are and know what you can do, and those kind of secondary relationships are really useful. So volunteering for things really helps, I think.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a great way of getting sponsors across the organisation. Thank you, Kelly. So let's move on now to talk about personal development, which is a particularly relevant topic at this time of the year as we approach mid-year. Kaylee, how would you say that you assess your career goals? How do you think about your development?
It's so interesting because your career changes over time, so there's no one set thing to look at, but I think for me, I like to link it to the projects that I do and pieces of work, and take the time to get the perspective, so I am looking back at the goods and the bads and really taking that time to assess what went right, what went wrong. I think for me, part of any project that I will deliver, I will take that time at the end of it to do a lessons learned with the team and make sure that we go through all stakeholder feedback, the good and the bad, and really assess how can we improve on delivery next time, and what felt right, what felt wrong, and really make those improvements, because I think it's taking those opportunities to really improve on yourselves.
That's great. That reflection time at the end of a piece of work is so important, isn't it, as you say, to think about the feedback and what you can do differently next time. Melody, so how often do you think people should evaluate the career progress, and what's worked for you?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. The answer is it depends. So if we're thinking about my FY24 goals, I'm going to be thinking about them and working on them quite frequently. Meeting with my people leader, who's kind of like my line manager, on a regular basis, scheduling time. Somebody mentioned earlier about having dedicated time to focus on their career, and that's my dedicated time. It's 30 minutes every 2 weeks to really reflect on my current goals and what I need to be working on and developing further. But if I think about, for instance, my next promotion to hopefully partner, I'm not thinking about that. I mean, it's kind of in the back of my mind all the time, but it's a larger thing that requires, quite a bit of planning and thought and work with a large number of stakeholders. And I'm not going to be thinking about it every 2 weeks, formally, but it's kind of a longer, steady burn building up towards that. And then as I get closer, I may pick up the frequency, but for now, I would say steady burn as opposed to my FY24 goals, which is very regular.
Oh, that's brilliant, and I love that you're putting that regular time in every 2 weeks to have that self-reflection and think about yourself. It's such an important thing to do. So moving on from continuing with this theme of development, let's talk about role models. Kelly, how important are role models?
I think they're really important, especially when you're new to a role or new to a job. When I first came to London, first starting to be an analyst, I worked with people who I really respected, and I kind of made a point to watch what they were doing, watch how they were speaking, watch how they were interacting with other people in the business, and that's how I learned how to do things. That's how I learned how to interact with people. We went to some really big meetings, and I kind of watched these people and thought, oh, that's how they do it, that's how they hold themselves, that's how they introduce themselves, and that was always really useful. I have a couple of great mentors, and one of them, and I always think, like, what would he do? Because he's somebody who I've always respected and always kind of thought about, like, oh, how would he do this? And one great thing that he did when I was first starting out and I worked on his team was he would say no. His first answer is no. And it was a well-known thing. His first answer was no. And it was so infuriating because you thought it was a good thing, but his answer would be no. And at times it was so infuriating. And then one day he said to me, I will always say no as my first answer because it is your job to convince me that you need it. And it literally just went off in my head. I thought, oh, stop asking rubbish questions. Kind of give him the reason to say yes. Don't come to him with like little things. It needs to be like a compelling case. So now when I talk to people, it's about that. It's about kind of coming with a reason rather than just a question.
That's brilliant. I mean, what a kind of challenging thing to have to deal with, but also what a great learning curve he put you through in terms of asking for what you want. It's back to what we were talking about earlier about influencing. So fantastic. Thank you, Kelly. Kelly, it's not always easy to find what you want in your role model, is it? It's not always easy to find them. So what's worked for you?
I think you don't have to have one person. You can have many, but you can look for traits. So you can look at a number of different people and pick the things that you like about them. So whether it's their public speaking or their subject matter expertise. And personally, I find that helps you build your authentic self rather than trying to imitate somebody else's way of doing things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great that you can kind of tap into different things from different people. Thank you, Kaylee. So we've had a great discussion on developing and growing in your career, but what about if things don't go according to plan and we lose confidence? Kaylee, have you got any advice on how you can share on how to rebuild confidence if you've been through a setback?
Absolutely. I think the most important is not to lose faith. You have to just get some perspective, as hard as it may be. For me, a few years ago, I was made redundant, and I took it really hard, to the extent where I thought, oh my God, insurance really isn't for me. I'm gonna do something else. But I really challenged myself to look back and really kind of unpick what I felt went well and what went wrong. And that, that's the reason why I'm here today, and I'm really enjoying the role that I have. So I'm so thankful to myself, weirdly, that I took that time to kind of gain that perspective and challenge myself to do a bit of deep thinking.
That's brilliant, Kaylee, and you should be thankful to yourself. That's a big win. Thank you. Natalie, I understand you have a story to share that might help the audience, give us some advice on that.
Yeah, so my advice, similar to Kaylee, is around seeking perspective, but also feedback. When I came back from my second maternity leave, there was a few things that happened that didn't really go to plan, and I really lost confidence in my ability to make decisions. And I was questioning every decision I was making. I was becoming very anxious, and similar to Kaylee, I was questioning, am I in the right role? Should I, maybe I'm better off being at home with the kids. And it got to the point where I just was holding all this anxiety inside, and I was getting, I was wake up in the morning and feeling really nervous about going to work. And it came to a head one day in a meeting with my boss. He's, are you okay? You're not your normal self. And I then was able to express to him the situation and why I was feeling the way he did. And he'd not noticed, and he put it into perspective for me in terms of the situations that had happened, and they were just small things. Why are you worrying about them? And he also helped me he helped me understand that he probably would have done the same, even though we didn't get the outcome that we wanted. So that really helped me in terms of putting it into perspective, and realising that actually I've just been letting it build up and made it a bigger thing than it was. But I also then took the opportunity to seek feedback from some of my colleagues around me. I had this situation, this is how it went, and they helped me to feel confident that they probably would have reacted in the same way as me. So I think for me the biggest thing is to seek that perspective from someone that you trust and who knows your ability, and then seek feedback from people around you, and it helps to build you back up so you're ready to go again.
That's a brilliant story. Thank you, Natalie. I'm sure one that we can all resonate with as well. So thank you. Melody, what are your thoughts? Is there any advice that you can share?
Yeah, obviously building on from what has been said already is, kind of around the theme of feedback, but for me it's having that trusted advisor or two that aren't emotionally tied to the immediate situation, for them to provide their advice and their feedback. And it's actually a very recent example that I'm really still going through, to be honest, where I had my initial face-to-face meeting finally after a number of video calls with the client. And it was a big working session, and the team had really prepared. A bit different in this experience where I was working with a subcontractor and hadn't presented jointly with the subcontractor previously, and it didn't go very well. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't fantastic. And the client used some very choice words at the end of the meeting, which made their way back to our partner. And the partners, trying to really prove themselves, and with this client, it's a very important client to Deloitte. And I took it really hard. I took it personally because I invested a lot of my time and really working with the team to prepare what I thought was really great materials that unfortunately just didn't get presented across quite as well. And so, one of the things I did is just, as it's already been said, a bit of reflection, a bit of time on my own, but then going to two people who I really trust and who know me and what I can deliver, and just talking through it with them and getting their non-emotional response, because I wasn't going to get that non-emotional response from the partner because the partner is invested in the situation with the client. So for me, it's that independent, non-emotional perspective after the time to reflect.
Wonderful, thanks Melody, some great tips there. And before we close, it would just be great to hear a piece of career advice from all of you as on some tips. So Melody, let's start with you. What's something you'd like to share?
So for me, one bit of advice I was given that I like to reflect on is we're not here to save lives, right? What we do is really important, but we're not in A&E saving lives. So if something doesn't get out in the next 2 minutes, it's going to be okay.
Brilliant, I love that, thank you Melody. Kaylee?
I think for me, whenever I've succeeded or I've gained a promotion, there's always somebody that says, you're so lucky, and it's so frustrating. And I think it's all about, luck is just hard work and sheer determination. I think you have to remember that.
Thank you Kaylee. Natalie?
So I would say that you need to earn trust and be trustworthy, because if the people around you trust you and see you as trustworthy, then you're going to have stronger relationships and you're going to have much more success in getting things done and being successful in your career.
Brilliant, thank you Natalie. And last but not least, Kelly?
So for me, I would say find things about your job that you enjoy. There's lots of parts of people's jobs that they don't enjoy, and make that a bigger part of your job. Volunteer more for those things, kind of be the go-to person for those things, and before you know it, that will be your job and you'll have kind of made yourself the job. So I would say I've pretty much made myself a fair few jobs that way. It's actually worked out really well.
Fantastic, some great career advice tips there. Thank you very much. Thank you to our panel.